Hello, welcome back to the video lecture series for Introduction to the Art of Programming using Scala. In this video we're going to continue working on our networked game example. We're using RMI to write a Tron game, and so we have worked on a client and a server, and we've set up the basic methods. At the end of the last video we had it so that our server would allow the clients to connect and would tell them back what number they were. Inside of here the server keeps track of the clients, and it only allows 2 clients in there. So what we still need to do is, there's 3 methods inside of here that we definitely have to write because they will be called by the server. We might change those a little bit, and then there's some methods inside of here as well. Okay, so right now this adds the new client onto the array, or onto the mutable buffer, and it returns the length of that -1. We also need to do some extra code so that we can check if this was the second client adding on, then we need to start the process of the game actually playing. Okay? We also need to think about what's going to happen with the turn left and turn right. And in some ways, we could probably make the argument right now this is not quite sufficient. Okay? Our Tron client, while we need to store the information of the remote, so that the remote client, so that we can call these methods on it, we need some additional information. Okay? When you are writing Tron, every player needs to have a location on the map of the world, as well as a direction that they're heading. And right now we don't have that. So what I want to do is I want to add our additional data in here. I'm actually going to make a private class. Let's I'm fine making this a mutable class. A private class for, how do we call it, a player. And this player is going to keep track of the Tron client, but it's also going to keep track of the X position, which is an int, the Y position, which is an int, and the direction that the player is heading in, also an int. And now, instead of keeping clients as just the Tron client, we're going to make it so it's a mutable buffer of player. And that should lead to an error down here, because now we can't just add in a simple client. We need this to be a new player. It starts off with the client, but then it needs an X and a Y. For the X, I'm going to say if clients dot length of clients dot is empty. Then I want to put this, so I'm going to put the first player over on the left side of this, give them a fairly small X value, about 100. Else, I'm going to give them a larger X value, 400. And in either case, I'm going to put the Y at 250. For the direction, well, let's go ahead and hit enter. If clients is empty, then I want to have them heading in, I'm going to go with direction 1, else direction 3. We'll talk about the directions and how I'm encoding that in just a bit. But this, now we have our players in there, and so for the directions, what does turn left do? So I'm making it such that my directions are, let's see if I can draw a little ASCII art for you here. I want 0 to be up. So if this is the player, direction 0 is up. Direction 1 is to the right. Direction 3 is down. Or direction 2 is down and 3 is to the left. So I'm going in a clockwise direction around, starting with 0 being up. That's the encoding that I'm going to use for directions, which is why the player who starts off on the left side is heading to the right at direction 1, and the player that starts off on the right side is heading to the left, direction 3. Okay. So what does turn left do? Well, they pass in the player that this represents. So we can say clients sub player dot dir. This needs to be changed. It needs to be changed to the rotation of turning to the left. And turning to the left is subtracting 1. So I want to take that same value and I want to subtract 1 from it. That works fine if you are if you're facing in directions 1, 2, or 3. But if you're facing in direction 0, this needs to then go up to 3. I could put an if in there, but I'm kind of preferential to doing this with modulo because I only have 4 directions. I can put a modulo 4 in there. I so do not need a semicolon. Oops, these need, that's a val, that's a var, that's a var, that's a var. Okay. And instead of doing -1, the problem is if I were at 0, 0 minus 1 is of course -1, and when you do the modulo, you're going to get back a negative value, which is not what I want. So instead of doing -1, I'm going to do +3, because once I take that modulo 4, it winds up being the same thing, except in the case of 0, 0 plus 3 is 3, modulo 4 gives me back 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, modulo 4 gives me back 0. 2 plus 3 is 5, modulo 4 gives me back 1. So you can see how that mapping works for all of these. And then here, if you're turning to the right, we're only going to add +1. Okay. We'll think some about thread safety in a bit because I am, once again, all of these methods are being called across threads, and we're about to do something that is going to change things up a little bit. Okay, so I have this happening here. All of these methods are now implemented, except for the fact that when I create my second client, nothing starts happening originally. So what I want to do inside of here is I want to go off and start the game. And I need to start the game in such a way that it's going to go off and start a separate thread, and then this is going to return from what it's doing. So we'll import, make sure I did that correctly, Scala actors actor, and it is going to make a call down here to our private def start game. And so that will happen off in its own thread. Okay, so what's going to happen inside of here? Well, I need to first give our players a countdown, and then I want to start running the game. Okay, so countdown. Maybe I'll write, for now I'm going to start writing this all inside of here. We'll break things up and change the code around as needed to keep it looking good. So for int I equals 0, no, let's go with 5. I greater than 0 minus I, what am I doing? I'm writing the wrong language. Sorry about that. For I in 5 to 0 by -1. People who have never seen a language like Java or C or C++ probably wondering what the heck was that. So this will count down, and for each one of these I want to send to the clients. So we're going to do clients dot for each underscore dot clients dot I believe that's the game start and I. Okay. Okay, so there we go. So this will send them a message, and they get to decide what they want to do with it. When it gets to 0, then we are going to actually start running the game here. And so I want this to keep going. Basically, this needs to keep going until someone dies. It's kind of hard to put that inside of, so this is variable. It's going to repeat a variable number of times. So I want a while. It's very hard to say until someone dies just in a small space. So I'm going to make a flag. And the flag is going to start off as true. It's going to be a var. And inside of here, we're going to run the flag until someone dies. What was the name of our method? Our game ends. Actually, how about we do, instead of a flag, winner equals -1, while winner is less than 0. And then when we're done, I am going to run through all the clients, game ends, and tell them that the winner was winner. Okay. So what happens inside of here? Well, I need to do the basic logic of playing the Tron game, which is to move each one of the players, set something that remembers the game so that things can move around, and then go. So let's start with this. Okay, so I realize here I'm going to need or it's nice to have a helper function, and I'd move players, check if dead, send to clients, and yes, and then pause. Okay. Because I don't want this to run just as fast as it possibly can. I actually want it to pause a little bit in there. Okay, so the moving the players might be nice to have because I need to do this for 2 different players. I need to have it so the check if dead is working for 2 different players. Part of the reason for doing it this way is then it would not be hard to extend this up so that we have more players than just 2. It would require a little bit of tweaking of the code up in here. I'd probably do this with something other than an if. I'd probably make an array of things for like start locations for each of the players. Private def move takes a P is a player, and what this is supposed to do is supposed to check their direction and move them accordingly. So match on their direction, case 0 is they're moving up, so it should do p dot y minus equals 1. And then we need cases for 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 3 move x, 1 is positive, and then the 2 is adding to y. Remember that the y direction is inverted, so up is negative and down is positive, at least in our graphics coordinates, which is what I'm going to continue using here because it's probably what we'll do for our display. So I can say for each of the players, okay, we're going to move them, and that was that code. After they have moved, we have to check if they're dead. I'm going to leave that for now. And then we need to send something to the client, which means that I want clients.forEach underscore dot client dot step taken. And this needs to send 2 collections, buffers, of int. I probably could have sent just general sequences. It really doesn't matter. In fact, why don't we go ahead and turns out that on this side all I care about is that they are sequences. We'll find out in just a second if that was, if this is going to wind up using the immutable sequence, in which case we might have a little bit of a problem. We'll have to come back and specify types. So I need these P1 and P2, and I can actually put those inside of here. A good way to do this would be, I am going to use the mutable buffer of here. And let me stick a name on this. P1 equals, and actually let's go with, instead of doing that, let's put the tuple of clients dot x arrow clients dot y, because that gives me a clients sub 0 dot x clients sub 0 dot y. Let's check the type here. It's a mutable buffer of int, and it adds the initial position for the players onto it. Okay. And then I can simply, this sends P1 and P2. After the move, I need to add their positions into here. So P1 plus equals, copy that, paste it there, copy, paste, player 2 adds the new location for number 1, and then my pause, thread dot sleep. How many times do I want to try to make this happen per second? Let's see, if I go for 100 would be 10 times a second, 50 would be 20 times a second. We'll try that and see how this works. So it's going to call each one and do the steps taken. I still have this to do in here to check if they're dead. We'll come back and we'll add that, but I would like to make it so that this can do at least a little bit of something. Game start, game ends. I'm not going to try to implement those yet. We'll come back in another video and implement those. But I do want to implement steps taken, and so what I'm going to do here is do, first I need to run through and blank out my entire image. Or, well, if I assume they don't, I won't even bother doing that. I'll just run through all of the P1s and P2s for x comma y in P1. I want to take my image, set RGB of x comma y comma color dot red, import color, red dot get RGB. Save, and that's happy. Copy, paste, panel.repaint. Blue. Okay. And I am currently making my images starting off as null. We'll go ahead and new buffered image of 500 buffered image dot type, and we'll just go with the plain RGB and not allow transparency so that I don't have quite so many magic numbers here. Okay. Let's see how much of this runs. So the server is up and running, and when I start the first client, we have an error there. Reindex out of bounds exception in the server line 60. Oh, this should have been inside of an if, sorry. If clients dot length is greater than 1, then we'll do that. Kill that, close, close, okay. Restart the server. I don't actually want to start the game playing until the second person has attached. Okay, so now it doesn't crash on that. Well, we have the blue line going one direction, but we appear to be missing the second player, which was the red line. And of course, there's no way for anyone to die or for me to try to turn anything because we haven't put those things in. Notice that this throws an exception when one of the clients separates. Okay, so my only question, oh, I see why. P2. Just real quick, let's make sure that works, and that will be the end of this video, and we'll come back for another video to try to add the, hopefully the last bit of functionality so that we can actually play this game. Well, I have to admit, it's going to be very hard for me to play it individually because I will only be able to turn one thing at a time. Okay, so there we go. So remember, each of these two clients is actually, this game is not running on the clients. They are just displaying things. It's the server that's actually doing the running here. So do that. That will actually kill the server because of an exception. We can talk about how to deal with that in a future video. But that's it for this video.